ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. First, our top stories. Ghana Immigration Service rescues over 300 West African nationals from organized exploitation rings in Accra. Fear escalates in Nigeria. Suspected bandits abduct several passengers, including students in Benue State.
You have people who believe this is a business at the expense of people's life, and this must not be allowed to go unchecked. Government must be very decisive and determined to bring people to book and deal with them decisively.
Benin's opposition Democrats Party seeks engagement with President-elect Romuald Wadani as it prepares for a new chapter.
It is certain that this will be very difficult for us, especially since we have no elected representatives and lack the necessary means.
An African Union of Broadcasting concludes 17th General Assembly in Banjul with focus on preserving Africa's media heritage. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
On the news, this is a More Edit.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. We'll begin in Guinea, where social media has been restored just days after being restricted. The restriction stemmed from insults and threats exchanged between a famous Guinean singer and an influencer. They accuse each other of wrongdoing, often implicating high-ranking government officials. This Friday, the social media platforms Facebook, Messenger, TikTok, and YouTube are once again accessible. They had been shut down to limit the spread of insults and threats between singer Yama Sega and influencer Maya La Solution. Both Guinean, they are well known in their country. The two women accuse each other of immoral behavior, often involving high-ranking officials in the presidency. The affair immediately gained national attention and prompted authorities to shut down social media in the country on Wednesday. While their services were reinstated this Friday, the Conakry Prosecutor's Office issued a statement reiterating the prohibition against insults and the glorification of illegal behavior. President General Mamadi Doumbouya also issued a statement calling on Guinean youth to use social media responsibly. Insulting remarks, hate speech, and division cannot be a path to building Guinea, declared the president. We head now to Ghana, where the immigration authorities have dealt a significant blow to human trafficking syndicates operating in the capital, Accra. In a massive early morning sweep, security operatives rescued over 300 West African nationals being exploited in organized street begging rings. The operation, described as intelligence-led, highlights a worrying surge in the trafficking of minors across regional borders. Abdullah Hassan reports.
It was a coordinated strike at dawn from the bustling corridors of Abose Okai to the dense neighborhoods of Nina and Medina. The Ghana Immigration Service, or GIS, descended on the strongholds of an invincible trade. By the time the dust settled, 305 people had been pulled from the grip of exploitation. The statistics tell a grim story of regional vulnerability. 66 women, 126 men, and most distressingly, 113 children. Deputy Commissioner of Immigration, Maud Anima Kwano, says this wasn't a random sweep. It was the second phase of a deliberate strategy to dismantle criminal networks that use vulnerable West Africans as economic tools on the streets of Accra. The GIS notes that the sheer number of minors, 77 girls and 36 boys, underscores deepening crisis. These children are often moved across borders under false pretense to be forced into labor under the guise of street begging. The authorities are now focusing on profiling. At a dedicated center in Accra, officials are working to trace the origins of those rescued, ensuring that victims, especially the children, receive immediate care and protection. The GIS says it is tightening border controls and internal migration monitoring to ensure that Ghana does not become a sanctuary for organized exploitation.
Abdullah Hassan filed a report. Meanwhile, African states and international partners are calling for urgent and coordinated action to prevent migrant death and disappearances across the continent. The call comes ahead of the 2026 International Migration Review Forum following consultations in Cairo. Christopher Teacher completes the story.
African governments and partners are stepping up efforts to address the rising number of migrant deaths and disappearances along migration routes. This follows a 3-day consultation in Cairo under the Global Compact for Migration, bringing together officials, humanitarian agencies, and civil society groups. The meeting produced recommendations to guide Africa's position at the International Migration Review Forum in May. According to the International Organization for Migration, more than 82,000 migrants have died or gone missing globally since 2014, including 19,000 in Africa, though the true figure may be higher. Participants warned that many victims remain unidentified, including families without answers, and called for better systems to trace missing migrants and support affected families. They also stressed the need to prevent death, improve data collection, and strengthen cooperation across borders. Gaps in data and coordination were highlighted as key challenges, with calls for better information sharing to guide timely interventions. The outcomes are expected to shape Africa's voice at the Global Forum as countries push for stronger international action to save lives and protect migrants.
Christopher Teacher filed the report. Elsewhere in Nigeria, concerns are mounting over the safety of students and commuters following another abduction in Benue State. The incident involved several passengers, many of whom were believed to be candidates for the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board examination. WDL's Abuja correspondent Yeche Nusasichi reports.
Gunmen have abducted at least 14 passengers, including several JAMB candidates, along the Makurdi-Otukpo Road in Benue State. The victims were said to be traveling to Otukpo for their examination when their vehicle came under attack. Sources indicate that the gunmen ambushed the bus, forced it to a halt, and marched the passengers into a nearby forest. A few passengers, including the driver, reportedly escaped, while others were taken away by the attackers. Security operatives say a search and rescue operation is ongoing to locate the victims and apprehend those responsible. Reacting to insecurity in Nigeria, senatorial aspirant Yerima Shatima called on authorities to take decisive action against the rising wave of abductions across the country.
You have people who believe this is a business at the expense of people's life, and this must not be allowed to go unchecked. Government must be very decisive and determined to bring people to book and deal with them decisively. I do not believe that this problem, the government is overwhelmed.
He also urged state governments to adopt more proactive security measures and strengthen coordination to safeguard citizens.
The issue of governance must not be seen to be the sole real responsibility of the president alone. The governors must also be responsible. Apart from the governors, even state citizens themselves must also contribute. They must come to the fore and give certain information.
The latest attack adds to growing concerns over insecurity in parts of Benue State, with residents calling for increased protection for travelers. For WADR, Yeche Nusasitu reporting.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, just as Nigeria, the Togolese government remains concerned about the security situation in the Sahel. The country is collaborating closely with the members of the Sahel Economic and Social Agency, SESA, in the fight against insecurity as well as on the diplomatic front. In this context, authorities are preparing to launch a Sahel strategy at a high-level meeting to be held tomorrow, Saturday, in Lomé. Sankle Janko reports.
This Saturday's high-level meeting will bring together representatives of the governments of the Sahel states, special envoys for the Sahel, representatives of sub-regional organizations, representatives of the United Nations and civil society. The objective for the Togolese authorities is to create a constructive dialogue around Togo's new Sahel strategy 2026-2028. Togo intends to strengthen its diplomatic efforts in the service of peace, development and growth in the countries of the Sahel and the Gulf of Guinea. Between 2021 and 2025, Togo spearheaded numerous peace initiatives in the sub-region and mediation efforts that led to the resolution of crises between several countries, including Mali and Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso and Côte d'Ivoire, and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. Follow me. If the Central Sahel, the epicenter of the security crisis in West Africa, collapses, the entire region will be brought to its knees. Since the stability of the Sahel and that of the Gulf of the Guinea countries are inextricably linked, Togo states that it does not want to remain on the sidelines of peace initiatives. Faced with the geopolitical realignment in the region, Lome says it wants to restore trust between neighboring states. The objective is to achieve a common fight in the region against violent extremist groups, cross-border crime, organized crime, and radicalization in the Sahel countries.
A report from our correspondent in Lome, Ida Bajo, and voiced by Sankule Janko. Now, the African Union of Broadcasting is holding its 17th General Assembly in Banjul, marking 20 years of shaping Africa's media landscape. The two-day meeting from April 16 to 17 is focusing on the future broadcasting on the continent. From Banjul, Sang Donamendi reports.
The 17th General Assembly of the African Union of Broadcasting has brought together media executives, policymakers, and industry stakeholders from across Africa. Held under the theme AUB 20 Years Serving African Media, Heritage, Innovation and Transformation, the forum is reflecting on progress and future challenges. Discussions are focused on innovation, institutional strength, and adapting to rapid technological change. Gambia's Information Minister, Ismail Cisse, called for stronger collaboration among broadcasters and greater innovation.
I encourage you to further strengthen cooperation among African broadcasters, embrace innovation, and reaffirm the values of media fraternity. This will entrench the media as a more powerful driver of social transformation.
The Director General of GRTS, Abdoulaye C., highlighted the importance of the gathering.
This meeting is very, very, very important. If you look at the theme of the meeting, heritage, innovation and transformation, we have to celebrate our heritage. We have to also innovate new ways of doing things, and we have to transform the entire landscape.
Participants also examined issues such as rising sports rights costs, funding challenges, and the impact of digital technologies. A representative of the Viori Africa, Alex Kobia, spoke on the future of content distribution.
Africa heritage is very important for us Africans, and because of that, every story we tell, every story we consume has to be received and told in the context of the African people themselves. While we're doing that, while we're telling even our story, as much as we want to tell developmental stories.
With 85 members, the AUB remains Africa's largest broadcasting body, promoting local content and collaboration. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
In Mali, rescue operations are ongoing for survivors trapped under the rubble of a collapsed building in the town of Kita, not far from the capital Bamako. The incident occurred when a multi-story building under construction suddenly gave way while several people were on site. The structure was intended to serve as a school facility. Civil protection officers quickly responded to the scene. According to the provisional toll, several people are reported dead while 9 are injured and evacuated to the local hospital. Some individuals remain missing as search operations continue. Usman Ma reports.
Rescue efforts are ongoing this Friday to ensure that no one remains trapped under the debris. Building collapses have become increasingly frequent in Mali in recent months, particularly in Bamako. The most recent similar incident left 6 people dead and about 20 others injured. The recurring tragedies have reignited debate over construction regulation in the country, particularly the quality of building materials, many of which are imported. Authorities have announced the opening of a wide-ranging investigation into the issuance of building permits, compliance with urban planning standards, and the use of qualified engineers in construction projects. It is worth noting that major cities in southern Mali have experienced rapid and often unregulated urban growth in recent years. The rising demand for housing and commercial spaces have driven a surge in construction, frequently carried out without adequate technical supervision.
Osman Ramah filed that report. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Ghana Immigration Service rescues over 300 West African nationals from organized exploitation rings in Accra. Fear escalates in Nigeria as suspected bandits abduct several passengers including students in Benue State. Benin's opposition Democrats Party seeks engagement with President-elect Romuald Wadani as it prepares for a new chapter. That's on the other half of the news. An African Union of Broadcasting concludes 17th General Assembly in Banjul with focus on preserving Africa's media heritage. We also have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget to join our live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. Now to Benin, where attention is turning to the country's opposition, including the Democrats, and the stance they will adopt in the new government. Following the re-election of Romuald Wadani as president of Benin, between calls for dialogue, cautious engagement and possible opposition, the signals remain measured. From Cotonou, Aziz Adam Suli reports as presented by Gossen Colley.
The opposition political party, the Democrats, which did not participate in the recent presidential and local elections, says it is preparing to reorganize. The party indicates it will first seek engagement with the newly elected president, Romuald Wadani, before defining its political direction. One of its vice presidents, Eugene Azatasu, says consultations are ongoing within the party.
It is certain that this will be very difficult for us, especially since we have no elected representatives and lack the necessary means. It will be challenging, but what remains is our vision for the development of Benin. What we have already decided at the national coordination level is that we will address a letter of audience to the president-elect as soon as he is installed. Following those discussions, we will submit a memorandum. It is the outcome of that memorandum that will determine the form in which we will organize ourselves and the manner in which we will conduct our struggle.
There are also indications that a political truce could emerge, particularly around proposed constitutional amendments, allowing opposition parties to engage constructively with the government while maintaining their independence.
That was a report filed in by our Cotonou correspondent, Aziz Adam Sule, and a voice by Gossen Colley. Liberian authorities are being urged to move beyond corruption indictments and ensure the recovery of stolen public assets as efforts intensify to tackle graft. Civil society groups say recent actions by the Asset Recovery and Property Retrieval Task Force must translate into concrete results. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, CENTAI, is calling on the government to ensure that the Asset Recovery and Property Retrieval Task Force delivers justice to do the recovery of stolen assets. The task force, established under Executive Order 161, is mandated to investigate and reclaim properties illegally acquired by public officials and their associates. Last week, its chairman, Edwin Clamartin, announced indictments against a former Minister of Commerce and Industry and several officials over the alleged misappropriation of $1.8 million meant for rural women's programs. CENTAI Executive Director Anderson Miami described the indictments as commendable, but stressed that the fight against corruption must produce tangible outcomes, noting growing public frustration over delayed justice.
When people are accused of corruption and indicted by the court, the state must ensure that the trial is speeded and that justice is dispensed to a verdict, be it guilty or not guilty. This is one way to ensure that the Asset Recovery and Property Retrieval Task Force lives up to its true mandate.
Miami also called for stronger measures, including collaboration with foreign governments to recover assets held abroad, and the establishment of a specialized anti-corruption code to fast-track cases. The latest call underscores ongoing concerns in Liberia over the need to translate anti-corruption efforts into real results that protect public funds and deter abuse of office. For Newslink, on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Our guest interview focuses on the 17th General Assembly of the African Union of Broadcasting AUB underway in the Gambian capital Banjul. It has been held under the theme AUB 20 Years Serving African Media, Heritage, Innovation and Transformation. Discussions are focused on preserving Africa's media heritage, driving innovation and strengthening institutions to respond to rapid technological change. The forum brings together media executives, policymakers, academics, and industry stakeholders from across the continent to reflect on progress and address emerging challenges in broadcasting. In an interview with WDR, Abduli Say, Director General of the Gambian Radio and Television Service, highlights the importance of the gathering.
Opportunities for training for more of our journalists, that is GRTS, the Gambian Radio and Television, and Gambian media personnel as well, especially in the area of AI. And in fact, we've started that. And day before yesterday, we had a session on how to use AI in content production. The other one is funding models for public broadcasters. You know, funding for public broadcasters is a challenge. Many broadcasters are facing financial difficulties. How are we going to broaden our imagination to bring in new innovations, new ways of doing things, different from the way we are doing them currently? Because currently, the whole world is struggling when it comes to public broadcasting. Why? Because of the emergence of new media, online media. 20, 30 years ago, public broadcasters have almost a near monopoly in news production. That is no longer the case. We have many online media outlets that are competing and sometimes outperforming public broadcasters, not because they have better content, but because they are free to do certain sensationalization form of journalism that public broadcasters can't do. 2, sports rights. Countries like the Gambia, Nigeria and others, if we want to show the World Cup or the African Cup of Nations, the rights are too expensive. We're paying a whole lot of exorbitant money. So we want to discuss how best we can bring that down so that all public broadcasters or all broadcasters in Africa can have access to sports rights.
What practical solutions do you expect to emerge from this discussion?
When it comes to sports rights, practically what we hope to do is to have Africa as one bargaining continent. If we are able to do that practically, we'll be able to discuss with the media, the ones who are holding the media rights, to bring down their prices. If Gambia does it on its way, Senegal does it on its own, Nigeria on its own, then the fragmentation will give powers to the rights owners. But if we call as one bargaining power, as one AUB, and we say, okay, this is what we want. If you don't do it, none of us is going to participate. Then I think that would work. When it comes to skills training and experience sharing, practically what we want is the African Union of Broadcasters to be more assertive, more forthcoming in giving opportunities to member states to train their personnel in new ways of broadcasting, new ways of doing things, especially in AI. Why? Because AI, when best used, is a very good tool. But if misused, it can cause the reverse. It can set societies apart, and we don't want that.
So are African broadcasters moving fast enough to adapt to the transformation, digital transformation?
I would say no, we are not fast enough, and that's why this meeting is very important. If you look at the theme of the meeting, heritage, innovation and transformation, we have to celebrate our heritage. We have to also innovate new ways of doing things, and we have to transform the entire landscape. We are not quick enough, we are not fast enough. I hope I would have wished we are faster than the pace we are at, and we'll discuss that here. We should be moving faster because the world is evolving faster than we are changing our ways of doing broadcasting. The first thing that we need to do is to move away from the fear of change. Most public broadcasters are very bureaucratic, and when you bring new systems, new innovative ways of doing things, many people don't want to change, because they are comfortable being the way they have been for the past 20 years. And that's no longer the way to do things. We have to bring a very disruptive system. We disrupt the whole system, bring control chaos everywhere before we can get the best. But if not, we won't work. Because imagine you want to do maybe an OV. For the public broadcasters, you need 20 or 30 people to do that. When a private individual can use 2 or 3 people, or even one person with a smartphone to get the same results. So we have to look at those things. We have to be innovative. We have to let go of what the system that we are used to 10, 30, 20 years ago. No, and that would be a big challenge. But then we have to push on.
Abdullah Isse, Director General of the Gambia Radio and Television Service, speaking with our Bantu correspondent, Sangdana Mendy. In sport news, World Athletics has rejected requests from 11 elite athletes seeking to change their nationality to Turkey. The body says the move appeared to be part of a coordinated recruitment strategy, raising concerns over the integrity of eligibility rules. The athletes, who include competitors from Kenya, Jamaica, Nigeria, and Russia, are now ineligible to represent Turkey in international competitions. In the meantime, Under-17 Women's World Cup qualifiers has resumed across Africa. The race for a place in the FIFA Under-17 World Cup continues as second leg matches in the African qualifiers get underway. Benin will be looking to overturn a 3-1 first leg defeat when they face Burkina Faso in Lomé. Meanwhile, Senegal takes on Tunisia after both sides played out a 1-1 draw in the first leg. Elsewhere, France has surged back into contention in the UEFA coefficient rankings thanks to a strong result from Paris Saint-Germain and RC Strasbourg. PSG's 2-0 win over Liverpool and Strasbourg's dominant Conference League victory have boosted France's position, giving them a late edge with two clubs still in competition. While England remains firmly on top with 4 teams still active, France is now pushing hard to climb the rankings as the season nears its end. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudajuf for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and X at WADR English. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.